Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual PNR planning meeting. As usual, I need to run through various points of procedure before we move to the agenda. Today's meeting is being held under the virtual meetings regulations using Microsoft Teams. All committee decisions will be as valid as decisions made at a physical meeting held at the town hall. For those members of the public watching the meeting on a YouTube link, PNR committee members often use more than one screen during the meeting to look at committee papers, which can mean that the member is not looking at their camera at any given moment. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the internet, and the recorded version will be on the council's website within 48 hours. As chairman, I can confirm public written statements will be read out by council officers. The planning committee consists of 13 members, adjusted to accord with political balance, agreed by all group leaders and the chief executive. Please confirm you are leaving the meeting in regard to a declared disclosable pecuniary interest. Compliance is essential to comply with the law. An officer will invite you back into the meeting following determination of the agenda item. Voting procedure. Please use the chat function when proposing or seconding a motion. State clearly what you are moving. This will aid the general public following the planning process online. Voting on applications will be carried out by roll call. The legal officer will call each councillor's name in alphabetical order. The vote will be taken on the basis that you have heard the entire debate on the application. Please state if your vote is for the motion, or against the motion, or if you wish to abstain. This will ensure the vote is correctly recorded. Voting on matters of procedure, such as confirmation of the minutes, will be undertaken using the chat function. Please ensure all mobiles are switched off and your IT devices are muted when not speaking. Hazel, please undertake the roll call for today's meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take the roll call of members first. Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor Cole.
Present.
Councillor Crew.
Present.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Present.
Councillor Cronolly.
Present.
Councillor Griggs.
Present.
Councillor Harley. She has sent apologies, Chairman.
Okay.
Councillor Leigh Morgan. I can see Councillor Leigh Morgan on the screen. So.
Sorry. Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Councillor Petty. Councillor Solomon.
Present.
Councillor Tonkin.
Present.
Councillor Westwood.
Present.
We have Councillor Petty substituting for Councillor McQuillan today, Chairman, and the officers present are Richard Kent, Simon Exley, James Wigmore, Anna Hayes and Judith Porter from Place Directorate, and Sue Buck, Mike Riggle, Michelle Chesterman and Hazel Brinton from Corporate Services. That's the final roll call, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 1, public speaking. Addresses by members of the public to be read out by officers, and we have 2 for today's meeting. The first address relates to agenda item 6, change of use of land to preschool land. Rachel Landon supports the proposal and her address will be read out by Hazel Brinton.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to offer the young children in Weston-s-Mare and surrounding areas the amazing opportunity to attend a forest preschool. To learn, play and explore, completely immersed in nature. The site I want to use is perfect. It is on the outskirts of Weston with easy access by foot, car and public transport. Most forest preschools are in the countryside and can be hard for some families to reach. This site is unique as children from all backgrounds will be able to attend. In 2018, the End Child Poverty Coalition revealed that more than 4,500 children live in poverty in Weston. When children live in poverty, they do not get the same opportunities as others. I want to give these families the opportunity to attend the forest preschool. We all know the positive impact of being outdoors. It reduces anxiety, provides a sense of freedom, develops a sense of belonging and reduces stress. For children, when they are completely immersed in the outdoor environment, their learning and development is so much greater than when indoors. The COVID pandemic is having a huge impact on everyone. The mental health and well-being of children is a real concern, and we as adults need to recognise this and help them recover. We all need to heal. Nature and its multisensory qualities support regulation in children. It enables them to calm themselves, refocus and think clearly. It has such a positive impact on brain development. Children tune into their environment because they instinctively know that nature can help them mentally, spiritually and physically. The forest preschool will offer the perfect environment for recovery. The children will develop and learn outdoors through physical, energetic play. In the UK, 1 in 5 children are obese before they start school. This is due to inactivity and poor diet. Our preschool will give children lots of exercise and fresh air in their lungs, and alongside this we can educate families on healthy diets. I want to inspire the children to want to care for their natural environment. It is their world. As David Attenborough says, the world belongs to young people, so we need to educate the next generation so that they can make a difference. The forest preschool will enable children to learn how special and important the ecosystem is. We will protect the wildlife, observe the bats, badgers and other mammals on the site. We will encourage flora growth for these animals and mammals to flourish. The environmental impact will be a positive one. The learning will never be forgotten by these children. This unique forest preschool will have a positive, lifelong impact on everyone that attends, and it could not have come at a better time. That's the end of the statement, Chairman.
Thank you. The second address relates to agenda item 7, part change of use of the Golden Valley Day Nursery, Oaksey Grove, Nailsea. Paul Eltham is against the proposal, and his address will be read out by Michelle Chesterman.
Thank you, Chairman. Every resident in the vicinity of the nursery has objected to this application, which must be rejected or at the very least deferred pending a proper assessment post-COVID. An unprecedented 26 objections have been received, every single resident. This application does not comply with the following policies. DM 69. This proposal is out of keeping with the location. This is a considerable expansion, creating a much larger commercial property, which would exacerbate existing traffic and parking problems, prejudicing the living conditions of residents, affecting the anxiety and mental health of some. We've had enough. This is not fair on the residents. DM 24. In my professional opinion, as a transportation and highways engineer with 30+ years experience, Oaksey Grove suffers from an already dangerous level of traffic. Proper consideration has not been given to this being a cul-de-sac, which is not designed for its current level of traffic, let alone any increase. The nursery access of the turning area, where every single car turns around, is dangerous. This proposal prejudices highway safety, exacerbates existing problems and is dangerous. The red line plan submitted with the planning application is inaccurate, deliberately not including the site access, as this is not fully within the applicant's ownership and is only a narrow constant width driveway. This access is unsuitable and dangerous. CS 11 and DM 28. The parking prejudices highway safety and has an unacceptable impact on on-street parking. The highways assessment does not consider COVID. This road has never been quieter than at the moment during COVID. The council parking survey considered this was sufficient parking, except for a short period. In other words, it is borderline acceptable during COVID and by extension, not sufficient post-COVID. The additional parking spaces shown on the application are pre-existing and started being used by existing staff in an attempt to fudge the parking surveys. There is no space for any additional parking spaces. The turning circle on the site plan is unachievable. This has not been properly assessed and is impossible to achieve. The space does not exist as it is now taken up with staff parking. DM 32. The case officer has incorrectly applied the 21 metre rule, which deals with residential to residential, overlooking rather than commercial to residential. Frosted windows should be provided to all overlooking windows. The proposals also do not comply with DM26 travel plans or DM33 inclusive access. Statement ends, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 2, apologies. Hazel.
We have apologies from Councillor Harley, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. Any comments on chats, Hazel?
No comments on chat, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of the 18th of November 2020 to approve as a correct record. Are there any comments?
And no comments in chat, Chairman.
I'd like to comment that I wouldn't want my name to say that I supported the minutes because I didn't attend that meeting.
In which case, all remaining members support the motion and that is carried. Thank you. Item 5, matters referred by Council, the Executive, other committees, there are none. Item 6, planning application 20/P/1078/FUL, change of use of land from agricultural use to preschool land at Wentwood Drive, Weston-s-Mare. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can start by asking members about the update sheet. First of all, I hope members have seen the update sheet and want to apologise that there's a issue with it that it refers throughout to Totterdown Road and it's actually Totterdown Lane. The update sheet contains additional highway assessment following concerns raised about highway safety at the junction of Wentwood Drive and Totterdown Lane. There are 2 appeal decisions that are relevant to members when they consider this planning application. One was for 50 homes on Wentworth Drive that was allowed on appeal, and the highway safety concerns were addressed as part of that appeal, including the following road safety improvements to the Totterdown Lane Wentworth Drive junction, which has a build out, provision of a footway and traffic calming measures on Totterdown Lane. So the highway aspect was considered by the inspector in paragraph 32 of that appeal decision. This application for Woodland Preschool was also the subject of a previous refusal. And if I can just it was subject to 4 reasons for refusal. The first reason for refusal was steep gradients, poor bus connect provision and lack of adequate public footpaths serving the site mean that the proposed development is poorly located where it is unlikely to be accessed other than by the private car. Development of community facilities outside settlement boundaries should only be in locations where good access by a variety of means can be achieved, and the development is therefore contrary to policy CS25 of the North Somerset Core Strategy and policy DM69 of the North Somerset Sites and Policies Plan. The inspector considered this and in the appeal decision addressed the issue of the location, and the inspector considered in paragraphs 9 that he regards as a development to be sufficiently accessible by modes of transport other than private car, although he recognised that for various reasons some will choose to come by car. And he said overall this preschool is intended to have a more rural and woodland location. However, it is adjacent to an urban residential area with good highway connections, and therefore he said there was not a problem with its location or the highway aspect. In addition, we've got 1 additional letter of objections being received. No new points are raised to those that are in the committee report, and following a review of the proposed conditions, we're proposing to add an additional condition number 12, which would restrict the number of children at any one time to 24. If I can just take members through the plans, and explain them for those members that are not familiar with the site. Totterdown Lane and Wentworth Drive on the left-hand side of the screen. The red line includes the new access to the housing development, and if you just take the cursor along, if you stop there, the road is blocked at the first junction because it's a building site beyond that. If you go a little further to the right, going up the hill, there's going to be a new junction onto that residential access road, and that will take you across an area of proposed open space and into the area that's proposed for the preschool. That's all within the red line. There's an area of woodland just north of above the cursor, and the main entrance will be located there. Apologise that the plan is a little bit faint. If we can have the next slide, please, Richard. This is an enlarged view of the access coming from the residential road, which is on the left-hand side into the site. The area of circles are an area of trees, and that's the boundary of scrubland and bushes there. And if you can see, there's a little pointing saying existing earth bank, and that's where the access will come onto the site. Can we have the next slide, please? This is the access road that's coming. You can see the round trees just above the proposed access road. It will come down and have a turning area at the end of the circle. And then on the south side, you can just make out the proposed parking spaces and the 7 parking spaces, and those will be provided for the staff and visitors. At the right-hand end, you can just make out of the round circle of the turning head. There is, if you just slightly to the right, that's where the proposed building will be, with compost toilets just further to the right again behind it. Can we have the next slide, please? This is the layout of the proposed building that will be there. It's not a classroom as such, it's more shelter for bad weather, because most of the activities would be outside and in the area of the site. Can we have the next slide, please? And that's what the proposed building would look like. Next slide, please. This plan shows in the centre of the slide, the red line is the line of the planning application site. The yellow line is land that will be used for grazing of stock, and that also includes the area of the orange area when the woodland school is not in operation. And then the larger blue land is the area that's of ownership that controls the area of woodland as well. We can have the next slide, please. This is taken from the Ordnance Survey. On the left-hand side, members can see Wentwood Drive and Totterdown Lane. What you can't see is plans of the new housing estate that's being built just to the right of the boundary in the field where Wentwood Drive finishes. The estate of 50 houses, approximately 50% are built. The road tends to go in a straight line up the hillside in the line of Wentwood Drive, with the houses on the south side of Wentwood Drive and open space on the north side. If members go to the site, they will be able to see the construction. And I understand that it's intended to complete this construction in approximately April time, with the site being cleared by May or June. And that's all I've got to this stage, Chairman. Thank you.
You're muted, Chair.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. For the benefit of fellow committee members who may not be familiar with this part of Weston, this nursery school, as you've just heard.
Chairman, could I interrupt just for 1 second? I have a question for the officer, Simon Exley. Would you mind, John, if I put that one first?
That's all right with you, Chairman.
Quickly, go on then.
Thank you very much. Chairman, the inspector in his report, and enhanced by Simon Exley, said that the inspector was happy with all modes of transport to the preschool or forest school. Now, I don't wish to be facetious, but would Simon know if the inspector walked the line from the preschool to the Broadway, or indeed returned on that direction, or if in fact he cycled that distance, which is approximately 0.6 of a mile? Because I think if he had, he wouldn't have made those remarks. It is exceedingly steep. Thank you, Chairman. That's all I wanted to say. And thank you for letting me speak, John.
Okay.
Very
John,
well.
carry on.
Yes, thank you. As I say, for those, I'm getting an echo here. Okay. Well, I can still hear an echo. Yeah. Well, I'll press on. As I say, for the benefit of fellow committee members who may not be familiar with this part of Weston, this nursery school, as you've heard, is to be built on a new site known as Keeper's Gate, which comprises over 50 houses, which are still under construction and won't be finished until perhaps April. It's at the top of a cul-de-sac called Wentwood Drive, as you've seen on the map, off Totterdown Lane, which is on Bleeden Hill. Now, Wentwood Drive is just 4.8 metres wide, compared with Totterdown Lane's 5.7 metres. When things return to normal, anyone trying to approach this nursery will have to contend with anything up to 100, maybe even more, cars taking residents from Keeper's Gate, going in the opposite direction to work, and or taking their children to school. And residents not just from Keeper's Gate, but from the 15 long-established properties in Wentwood Drive itself and its offshoot cul-de-sac Brecon View. The problem is this: the situation at the bottom of Wentwood Drive, at its junction with Totterdown Lane, is that vehicles coming up Totterdown and wanting to turn left into Wentwood cannot do so if, at the same time, a vehicle is trying to exit Wentwood to turn right to go down Totterdown. So there is already no two-way traffic at the bottom of Wentwood because it's too narrow. Cars swinging in and encountering a vehicle trying to get out will have to reverse and back down Totterdown Lane to clear the junction. And in my view, that significantly adds to the chance of vehicle collisions at that point. This is an event which will occur at least twice a day, since collecting little children from this creche will only reverse the Monday to Friday morning situation. In other words, it will be cars collecting these little tots which will be denying residents the opportunity to get home without the likelihood of having, as I previously described, to back down Totterdown Lane because their entry into Wentwood is blocked by an exiting vehicle. Add to recycling and rubbish lorries, supermarket deliveries and the occasional removals, and Wentwood Drive will look like a bottle with a steady string of corks in it. Not only will that greatly inconvenience the new residents at Keeper's Gate, but all those who've lived in this secluded quiet of Wentwood Drive and Brecon View for many years. Members will have seen from the displays that have just been on screen on page 5 that highways say that it's considered that the volume of traffic would not have a detrimental impact on the local highways network, or on highway safety beyond the immediate vicinity of the site. Now, I take issue with that statement. I may appreciate that highways officers have given this application the benefit of their experience, but I can only think that they haven't realised the problem that I've just highlighted, and therefore not taken into consideration when making their report. However, the long-time residents are well aware of the situation and have brought their concerns to me. And if necessary, Chairman, I would like to request a site visit so that all those members of the committee who are not familiar with this particular situation can see it for themselves. Thank you.
So, Councillor Lee Morgan, what is what? Hang on, Councillor Bryant. What is your initial proposal, Councillor Lee Morgan?
That this application is turned down.
And do you have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Councillor Bryant. Councillor Bryant.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, it gives me very great pleasure to second that proposal for refusal, and I concur all the points made by Councillor John Leigh Morgan. Now, I've read with very great interest the merits of woodland or forest preschools, and I fully support this type of activity, subject to all other relevant planning issues are legal and deemed acceptable. And in this case, I don't. I draw everyone's attention to page 4 under the principal planning issues, issue 1, namely the principles of development, and CS 25. The passage makes interesting reading and states sustainable location, accessible by a choice of transport modes, and to disabled people. I have to state the choice of transport is likely reduced to one of the 3 types, namely by car. The reason, because of the steepness of the incline. The inspector, in his reasons for approval in the original application, which this council refused, makes mention of walking and cycling. Taking cycling, first riding down the incline is achievable, but then returning is prohibitive because you're pushing your bike uphill. There's no way you could ride up there unless you're an athlete. It's far too steep. Now, when this particular application was approved for the 50 houses of those and the residents of 50 properties, now we're talking about there where 50 houses are taking in people of all ages, from day-old children to people who are my age and about to pass away. Well, the greater majority of those would be able to access, certainly by walking. But we're talking about 24 children. The maximum that's being allowed in the paper, which has come to us today from Simon Exley. Now, those 24 children at any time would not be using bicycles, and walking would be dangerous for such young people, even accompanied by their parents. The whole site is extremely exposed to westerly, northwesterly and north winds. And it's likely for a few weeks of the year, the road and pavements surfaces would be frozen. Frozen pavements with its coupled with such steep gradients is extremely dangerous to such young and experienced youngsters. Finally, from the forest preschool to the infamous junction of Wentwood Drive and Totterdown, which my colleague John Leigh Morgan has spoken greatly about, that distance is approximately 1/3 of a mile, and a further third of a mile to the Broadway at the bottom of the field. I also endorse Councillor Leigh Morgan's proposed site visit. And I would like him to take on board, within his refusal, the remarks that I've made about the 24 children being unacceptable for them to walk on such gradients as this. And finally, Chairman, I did ask questions of Simon Exley, but we didn't give him time to answer. So could he possibly tell me, did the inspector walk the line down and back up again? And did he in fact try and do so with a bicycle? Because he has blandly stated that both is achievable and very easy to do.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd be happy to answer the question, which is that I don't know if the inspector walked up and down the road or cycled. However, that's irrelevant because an inspector does an unaccompanied visit without officers there. What is important is that the inspector has made his decision and made it on the basis that he considers it acceptable. So whilst I fully understand the points that members are making about accessibility, this site, the adjoining housing site, was allowed on appeal by an inspector who considered it accessible, even if members don't agree. The inspector who considered the appeal for the preschool, which was dismissed at the end of March, only 9 months ago, also considered the suitability of the location of the site in terms of accessibility and also in terms of highway. But he dismissed the appeal not on those grounds. He considered they were acceptable. He only dismissed them on two grounds, one of which was the layout of the parking area, and the second was because the issues of ecology had not been properly addressed. So whilst I fully understand that members want to raise the issue of the suitability and location of the site, these matters were considered by the appeal inspector, and he considered both of those were acceptable. It was just the details of the parking and the ecology. And if members want to go down the route of recommending refusal for the highway safety issues, then I must warn you that these were addressed in two appeal decisions. And one of the things that members will look at, the planning inspectors in an appeal will look at what previous inspectors have decided on those issues, and it's not whether or not an inspector actually did the physical walk or not. But what we'd like to do is ask James Wigmore, who's the highway engineer, to expand on that. But I think if other members want to say something first, we can come back to James.
Michelle.
Yes, I've got a few members like to speak. I don't know if Richard wants to speak. I know he put in a question
Yes,
to speak. Yeah,
Chairman, Chairman, yes, please. Just a couple of points. One is just on meeting administration. Could I just remind councillors who want to speak to indicate in the chat rather than by the hands raised? It just makes it so much easier for us to keep track of who wants to say what. And please also just use the chat function simply to say you want to speak, and don't use it for any other comments, because again, it makes following things much easier from a meeting management point of view. The only other point I wanted to make, we have a motion for refusal, but could Councillor Leigh Morgan just be clear for us on what the reason for refusal would be, just so that we're clear what it is we're debating.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Right. Well, as I have tried to explain, my concern is a couple of 100 yards away down the road and at the junction of Totterdown Lane and Wentwood Drive. The fact of the matter is that vehicles cannot turn into Wentwood Drive if something is about to exit from Wentwood. So I don't know how you might phrase that, but
I think the officer is alluding to an actual planning policy.
No, Chair, I just want. I think we can.
Chairman, can I ask, John, are you accepting my extra bit in your proposal?
yes, of course, yeah.
Then you'll need to hear that from me, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah. So additionally, that the gradient is far too steep and dangerous for children of such young and tender age to access the preschool in anything other than a car. And this is, I think, subject to CS 25.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Chairman,
can I just reiterate what? Sorry, can I just reiterate what Richard said? Can we all use the chat function? It makes life so much easier. Richard, do you want to come back quickly?
Thank you. Yes, and Chairman, please just use the chat function to say speak. Please don't get into side conversations because it's incredibly confusing. So as I understand it, the reason for refusal that's being moved has two elements to it. One is that the junction of Totterdown Lane and Wentwood Drive is congested, and additional on-street parking that would arise from this proposal will make that unacceptably worse, coupled with the fact that users of the school will inevitably have to come by car due to the gradient of the hill that they need to come up. Have I got that right? Contrary to the relevant policies.
I don't think that the congestion is quite describing the situation. My concerns are it is the two-way traffic at that point will cause vehicles to back up onto the main road.
Michelle.
So sorry, Chairman. So it's not a parking point specifically.
No, there's no parking issues there.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Councillors Petty, Crew, Solomon and Cronady would like to speak, Chairman.
Petty, Crew and Solomon. Councillor Petty.
Thank you. I'm finding that my bandwidth means that I think I won't be able to turn on my camera because I find that I've come off calls when I've tried to do that. So I'm going to speak without camera if that's okay.
Yes.
I would like to propose that this application is approved as per the officer's comments. With my regard, this is a strong application that has previously had cause for concern, but that those concerns have been properly addressed by the applicant, and that the work of the officers has highlighted any concerns and have now been addressed. I believe that forest schools are extremely helpful and beneficial to our communities, and that the children and families of Weston-s-Mare are crying out for such a service, and that these children would benefit from that. Our children need to be fit and healthy. They need to run around and be outdoors, and they even need to run up steep hills and walk up steep hills. So although some may find that they need to arrive by car, there is a bus route, but actually, having attended forest schools myself, you tend to find very fit parents who are up for the challenge and children who are embracing the outdoors. So in my regard, I see this as an agricultural area close to an urban community who are crying out for this facility. And I would like to see this application approved to serve that community and ensure that Weston-s-Mare families can benefit from activities such as this.
Thank you. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, to Richard, you can use the chat function, providing your latest update allows you to do it. Mine doesn't. I can only do it by showing of hands. Chairman, I can't agree with the last speaker. I totally agree with John Morgan and Pete Bryant. Members were around at the time will recall we had a site visit there before the application for the housing. The situation in terms of Totterdown Lane and the junction, yes, roadworks were proposed to increase the junction, but it's still a problem, as John said, when you're trying to turn. I was actually amazed that in the end that the inspector actually approved it. I guess he did it sitting at his desk. I would be amazed if he looked at this one very closely, and I agree with both ward members. If you look at the steepness of that, any possibility of cycling and walking, whether they're fit or not, if you've got young children, no matter how fit you are, and it has been pointed out, very often because of the steepness of it, the roads will be iced over. Those pavements, the type of pavement which is there, are slippery. I've seen people slide down before. I spent a lot of time at that junction before we had it at committee, in addition to the site visit, and observed many cars coming down that lane at speed, which could cause a problem, no matter what you do. And just because an inspector thinks it's okay, very often we challenge what an inspector does, and sometimes we think we are still right and they're wrong. And we had evidence where inspectors have approved things in the past, which subsequently has been a problem. So I fully support the refusal by Councillor Morgan and Bryant, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Solomon.
Yes, I want to back up what Councillor John O. Morgan and Councillor Bryant are saying, because I actually live opposite Wentwood Drive. If I walk into my front garden, I can see Wentwood Drive. I've walked up to the new housing development, and there is no doubt whatsoever, because I walk up and down that hill on a regular basis, and I walk up and down it with my granddaughter. It is an extremely steep hill, and you have to be very fit to walk up it. Okay, Councillor Crockford-Hawley would cycle up it on his electric bike, I'm sure he would. But I watch cyclists walking up that hill with their bike, and when you get then to the turn off into Wentworth, it's steep again. So you get a second area of steepness. Also, you wouldn't want people stopping and parking on Totterdown Lane to walk up to that particular side, because then that would cause an extreme problem on Totterdown Lane, which is fast becoming quite a busy road to access Bleedon Hill, even though it's a one-way system from where my house is. So yes, we do need to take into consideration the steepness of that. It does get very icy, and I slipped. I've seen my granddaughter slip on that particular hill. The pavements are not great, and we do need to take all that into consideration before making our decision.
Michelle.
And Councillor Kieran Connolly as well, Chairman.
Councillor Connolly.
Hi there. Yeah. So I understand the points councillors are making, so I'm going to try and take the emotion out of it. But the reality is here is you're advancing an argument that has already been put to the inspector. So you're going to end up with the same outcome, are you not? And in doing so, you're wasting public money on an appeal you know you're going to lose, regardless of the merits or otherwise. This argument has been advanced before, and I've got the report in front of me. So just to read it out to you, to walk to the site from Wentwood Drive, there would be a relatively steep incline. We're all pretty much in agreement with that. But this is also the case for the new houses being built on this street and also for other houses. I would not regard these houses as inaccessible as a result of the gradient, and in my opinion, the same is true for the proposed preschool. You're making the same argument, you're going to lose the merits of the emotion behind it or not. And for that reason, I think the school should go ahead.
Michelle.
Councillor Petty would like to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Petty.
Sorry, just to come in. So I was helpful to hear from Councillor Solomon of his local experience, but he did point out that it can be done to walk up that hill, and he already does do it with his young granddaughter. So that is obviously a positive example of how people already continue to do that. And I value Councillor Connolly's input there with regard to the fact that there will be houses there now. This is not a discussion of whether those houses have merit or don't, because that application has been made and has been met. So for me, this preschool is also a site where we will be creating jobs. And I believe that we want job creation in Weston and in the North Somerset area at this time. I've got one question as to whether this is a nursery where children would be deposited for the day, or whether this is a preschool forest school, which is where people arrive to come to do an hour or two activity. Because I do think that has a difference, because an activity might start at 11 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock, and so that would impact how those car journeys would be made. And you know, in the future, we hope that those car journeys will be cleaner. There will be car sharing, but we can't speculate entirely on that. So I just wanted to bring in that comment about job creation, and also that. And then the other thing is, yes, we are on a winter's rainy day, but actually there are many weeks in every year. And should it become an icy or overly windy day, then I anticipate that a forest school actually shuts when it is high extreme weather. So we need to think about the days in May, June, July, but not only those icy days that we may have less of, depending on climate change. Thank you.
Based on what I've heard, I would like to propose we have a site inspection and I'm looking for a seconder.
Oh, Chairman, Councillor Crockford-Hawley's asked to speak as well.
Second, Chairman.
Okay, so Councillor Crockford-Hawley, we're now talking to the amendment only.
Technically, yeah.
Not technically, we are.
Yes, you are now.
Yes,
well, actually, you're not. You've had a proposal and a second for a site inspection. Have you put that to the vote?
Not yet, no.
Oh, well, in which case it's not yet been determined. So I'll carry on speaking to the initial proposition.
No, that's incorrect. We are talking
in which case
to
I'll speak. In which case I'll speak to the site visit. I'm still going to say the same thing, Chairman. I can gather the frustration being voiced by members, but they're in grave danger of making an ad hoc decision which is based on nothing at all other than their emotion, other than their desire not to permit this development. I'm sorry, there are only two issues which we should be discussing today, and those are the two issues which the inspector gave on the previous decision. Anything else is utterly irrelevant, and I'm sorry, any reference to what ice may or may not occur is all very pleasant, but it's got absolutely nothing to do with the germ of this application. If you refuse this, for the reasons which John and Peter, long-standing members, have raised, not only will this not succeed on a future appeal, but we will have it thrown out and it will be determined to be either a vexatious or a frivolous decision, and we will be in grave danger of having costs awarded against us. I'm sorry, but experienced members of the Planning Committee really ought to understand this. You may not like what you're going to have to do, but you're in a situation which you cannot get out of.
Chairman, Richard Kent has asked to speak.
Richard.
Chairman, yes, it was just in the context of a site inspection. As members will recall, we are operating under severe lockdown arrangements. We're now operating under severe lockdown arrangements, which means that a conventional site inspection, the way you've done it historically, wouldn't be possible. So we would need to look at exactly how that could be achieved. So members just need to be mindful of that. And certainly in the past, we've always encouraged councillors to go and look individually under their own steam, but a conventional group site inspection in the way that we've done it in the past won't be possible under current arrangements.
Okay. Michelle.
Councillor Petty would like to speak again, Chairman.
This is on the amendment, Councillor Petty.
Yes, I wouldn't seek to do a site visit at this time, so I would oppose that proposition because I believe that we have all had adequate time to go and take that visit in our own time, knowing what the intended applications of today were. That the committee had a fair and due time to go and make that site visit already. So if they didn't come prepared today, then that opportunity is missed, and that the applicant has been waiting sufficiently to get an adequate date and an adequate result, and it would be just delaying tactics, really.
Any more comments on a site inspection? Michelle?
Councillor Crewe would like to speak, Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor
Crewe. Councillor Crewe, Chairman.
Councillor Crewe.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got to object to that last comment because I say it's a complete waste of time. How many members of the committee have actually been there? That's the question. If they haven't, I've spent a long time when I was chairman of PNR before that came to committee, because I knew it was a very difficult one to deal with. I spent a lot of time at that junction and on that road, many visits over a period of a couple of weeks. It is a problem, and I'm not getting emotional about it. It doesn't worry me the fact the inspector may be right or may be wrong. I just believe that the situation there is more of a problem than is being projected. And if it takes a site visit to do that for members, however that's arranged, I think that should happen, Chairman. And therefore, the proposal to deferment for a site visit seems to be the sensible way forward.
Thank you. Michelle.
Councillor Solomon is asked to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Solomon.
We're all very, very busy people. I know I am, and I know the officers are. And I think a site visit is a complete waste of time. Thank you.
Michelle?
No more comments in chat, Chairman.
Simon, do you wish to come in before the vote?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If I could just reiterate the point I made, I think Councillor Cropwood-Hawley actually summed it up. We've got 2 appeal decisions where the issues of the junction and the location of the site itself were considered by inspectors. And although I understand members disagree with them, that's what will be taken into account if members refuse this application, particularly the appeal on the preschool, and that inspector only refused it for the 2 reasons. One was the parking layout and the other was ecology. So I would say to members that you're not bound by those inspectors' decisions, but they are very important in terms of the decision you want to make on this application, because if you refuse planning permission, another inspector will take those into account and what those 2 inspectors have said about the suitability of the access and the location. One thing I'd also add is that national planning advice says that if on highway grounds members are minded to refuse things on highway safety grounds, then the impact must be severe. We've heard in the report the highway engineer does not consider the proposals cause any severe impact, and the highway aspects are acceptable and do not adversely affect highway safety. Hopefully, if James is available, I think if he could briefly say, Chairman, a little bit about it. He is very familiar with the area. Thank you.
James.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so first of all, if I could just clarify a few details to do with vehicle movements. So we're talking about the Keeper's Gate development. It was suggested that there'll be over 100 extra vehicles going out in the morning, and the vehicles for the forest school having to travel against those vehicles in the opposite direction. I've dug out the figures, and the Keeper's Gate development was predicted to add 33 vehicle movements in the AM peak and 35 in the PM peak. So that's just by way of clarification. The forest school development itself has been predicted to add 12 to 15 vehicle movements in the AM and in the PM peak. So that's the kind of vehicle movements we're looking at. My second point, the highway safety improvements carried out as part of the Keeper's Gate development did include the provision of the footway and traffic calming and visibility improvements at the junction of Wentwood Drive and Totterdown Lane. Those have all been road safety audited, and there hasn't been an accident since those have been put in place. And then so that sort of impacts on the walking side of things. The walking environment has been improved as a result of the Keeper's Gate development improvements. And then finally, yes, what Simon said about the level of impact on the highway network and on highway safety that has to be demonstrated for us to refuse an application is a very high bar, and that this application, the impact of this development, whilst it is likely to be inconvenient to local residents, it is not a severe impact on the highway network in my view. So thank you for allowing me the time to explain those things.
Thank you. So the proposal is for a site inspection. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll now take the vote from each councillor in alphabetical order, and for each vote taken, the councillor will be confirming that they have heard the whole of the debate unless they state otherwise. The proposal is for a site inspection. Councillor Bryant.
Approve.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crewe.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Against.
Councillor Cronolly.
Against.
Councillor Griggs.
Against.
Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Petty.
Against.
Councillor Solomon.
Against.
Councillor Tonkin.
Against.
Councillor Westwood.
Against.
Chairman, that's carried with 8 against and 4 for.
Chairman, sorry, it wasn't carried.
Sorry, not
lost.
carried.
It was
It was lost. Sorry, I do apologise. It was lost.
So we return to the original motion for refusal. Any additional comments from members?
No comments in chat, Chairman.
Simon, any additional comments from you?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If I realised I didn't answer Councillor Petty's question about the usage. It is a woodland school. I understand from the business model that was and the document that was submitted with the planning application that there would be a mix of types of activity there. Some children will be there for some time, but they were hoping to get school trips. And normally with school trips, they would be on, children would come to the site by minibus, and then it would be for a session, which would probably be a morning or an afternoon. So it would be different time. And the details explain that there would be 5 members of staff would be employed at this site. I think obviously members have debated the access issues. I've explained that we've had the 2 appeal decisions and that these issues have been previously considered. So I'll leave it to members to vote on it, Chairman.
Councillor Leigh Morgan, do you wish to sum up?
No, I think that everybody's heard what I've got to say. I mean, my objections are on behalf of anyone having to negotiate the entrance to the approach to the school, which will be impossible when vehicles are trying to exit at the same time. They're going to have a bottleneck at the bottom, which is going to mean that the incoming cars will have to back up into what is, to all extended purposes, the main road. And I think that that has the potential of accidents, the degree of which, of course, I can't forecast, but accident of any sort is to be avoided. And I'm sure that there could be other sites for this school. I'm not against the school itself. It's just the fact of where they're proposing to put it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a proposal to refuse the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll go straight to the vote as it's the same item number. The proposal is for refusal. When I say for, it will be for refusal. Against will be against refusal. Councillor Bryant.
Just again, you've confused me. Will you say that again?
Yes, Councillor Bryant. When I say for, it will be for refusal. When you say against, it will be against refusal.
Okay. For.
Councillor Cole.
Against.
Councillor Crewe.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Against.
Councillor Cronolly.
Against refusal.
Councillor Griggs.
Against refusal.
Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Petty.
Against.
Councillor Solomon.
Against.
Councillor Tonkin.
Against.
Councillor Westwood.
Against.
Chairman, that was lost. I'll get it correct this time. That was 9 against refusal.
Thank you very much. So we need another proposal from a committee member.
No, we don't.
Chairman, I think Councillor Petty proposed moves officer's recommendation, but I'm not sure if she had a seconder.
Yes,
I
she did.
seconded.
Yeah, she had Councillor Griggs seconding.
Okay.
Oh, Councillor Connolly's asked for the proposal in as well.
Councillor Connolly.
It was the same one. They just beat me to it, that's all.
Okay. Any more debate from members? In which case we have a proposal to approve the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Just to clarify, councillors, when I say for, it will be for approval. When you say against, it will be against approval. Councillor Bryant.
Against.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crew.
Against.
Councillor Crockford Hawley.
For.
Councillor Cronolly.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Petty.
For.
Councillor Solomon.
For.
Councillor Tonkin.
For.
Councillor Westwood.
For.
That motion is carried, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 7. Planning application 20/P/1629/FUL. Change of use to enlarge Golden Valley House Day Nursery, 18 Oaksey Grove, Nailsea. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. If we can, there isn't an update sheet for this application, but if we can run through the slides, I'll explain the proposals to you. If we can have the first slide, please.
Are they not displaying for you?
No, I can't see those. The front sheet, Richard. Thank you. The site right in the middle, you can see it is number 18 with the red line around it. That is the application site. The moment the building is a nursery on the ground floor and a residential flat above it. The access is just to the north of it from Oaksey Grove. You can just see the hammerhead. If we can have the next slide, please. You can just see, hopefully, a little red square in the centre of the plan. That's where the nursery is located. You can just make out the hammerhead. Oaksey Grove comes on a bend around the houses that front onto school playing fields. Yes, if you can see it there. Thank you, Richard. If you go a little bit to the north, if you follow the cursor around the other way, Richard, to the left. Yeah, the other way around. Bit further again, bit further. Stop there. Stop. Just the entrance is just to the right of where the cursor was. But if members can see on the left-hand side in the middle of the green space, that is the nearby school. And there is a public footpath that goes from Oaksey Grove along the boundary with their playground area to a gateway that is along there. So one of the things that we found is that members of the public use Oaksey Grove to not only visit the nursery and the veterinary practice, but also to visit the school. If we can have the next slide, please. This shows the layout of the site itself, which shows 2 cars parking spaces. Just to the north of the building, there's another 2 spaces and a turning area in the middle. The entrance is the cul-de-sac to the north. The next slide, please. This is the floor plan of the existing layout. So the bottom one, the bottom one is the existing nursery in cream colour, with a garage on the right hand end for the flat, and then on the top is the first floor, which is the residential flat, which occupies the whole of the first floor of the property. Next slide, please. The proposal, as you can see it on the floor plans, is to convert approximately half of the first floor to the nursery. So it will be used in connection with the ground floor nursery, but will be used for infants, as a baby room, a parent's room, and another baby room with access internally. This reduces the space of the first floor flat. So the proposal is to allow the conversion of part of the first floor to the nursery. This will allow the nursery to expand from the existing number of children that can be accommodated there up to from 30 up to 42 children. The report explains that we've assessed it, and we've assessed the impact on car parking. I'd just like to pick up a comment, if Richard, yes, if we can go back to yes, that plan. The issue is one of car parking that takes place on the street. As members can see from the plans, there are a number of streets in the area, but this Oaksey Grove provides the access to this nursery, and also is used by parents that drop children who attend the nearby school. The applicant submitted a car parking survey because they couldn't provide all the car parking on the application site. The Highway Department were not satisfied with that survey and undertook a survey themselves to assess the amount of on-street parking, and they considered that that was acceptable. I think what we'll do, Chairman, we'll let members ask questions, and then perhaps if there is an issue, we'll bring James Wigmore in to talk about the parking arrangements. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, you're muted.
Sorry. This is an application in my ward. I believe the proposal is contrary to several council policies. So I would like to move refusal, and I'm looking for a seconder.
Yes, I'm happy to second it.
I'm quite happy to second that proposal.
Thank you very much. Okay, the original planning consent allowed up to 30 children to attend Gong Valley Day Nursery. The 30 limit was conditioned by the planning authority to control and protect the interests and amenities of local residents. The proposed 40% increase in children attending the nursery will compound highway and traffic issues in the cul-de-sac and compromise further the amenity of local residents. Regarding the GVN parking survey carried out in September and other highway checks by officers, this information carries little or no weight due to the fact that the data was carried out during the current COVID pandemic. The information bears no resemblance to the actual highway issues affecting local residents prior to COVID. Normal travel habits have been severely compromised during COVID, whether it be by car, aviation, or public transport. In my view, the only sensible option is to obtain accurate data is to undertake a second GVN traffic survey later next year. And until then, the number of children attending the nursery should remain at the current permitted levels. The information in the report demonstrating additional parking space, I suggest this is not robust. Total ownership of the access site is in question and disputed by residents adjacent to the nursery. Also, the report confirms that on-site parking is below current council standards. Historically, the upstairs accommodation has been used only for residential use. The proposed larger commercial proposal is inappropriate and unsustainable in this otherwise quiet residential area. Members would have noted on the previous application under issue 2, highway safety, the appeal inspector reason for dismissing the applicant's appeal, and I quote, the appeal inspector concluded that the turning arrangements within the site were not adequate. This could lead to drivers choosing to park in the housing development area, and as a result could cause highway concerns within residential development. The exact same situation exists in Oaksey Grove, with number 18 being located in a hammerhead. And unlike the previous application, there are no mitigating measures which have been put in place. I also noted with the previous application, officers added a condition limiting the number of children to 24 to mitigate highway and amenity issues. This relates to the previous planning approval on Oaksey Grove Nursery, limiting children to 30. So, to summarise, my reasons for refusing this application are: 1, the character and increased scale of the proposal from a dual commercial residential use to only a much larger commercial use is inappropriate in this location, and the proposal will prejudice the living conditions and amenities of local residents. Contrary to policies DM69 and DM32 of the Sites and Policies Plan Part 1, and also policy CS3 of the North Somerset Core Strategy. 2, the proposal is contrary to policy CS11 of the Core Strategy and policies DM24 and DM28 of the Sites and Policies Plan Part 1, in that it compromises highway safety and it has not demonstrated additional parking on site or on the public highway. 3, the proposal does not meet the Council's standards for parking. Parking problems would intensify in the surrounding area. So the proposal is contrary to policy DM28 of the Sites and Policies Plan Part 1. The proposal is contrary to policy DM38 of the Sites and Policies Plan Part 1. The policy states that proposal should take into account the Council's parking standards and that the massing, scale and proportions of the proposal should respect the street scene. And lastly, the proposal is contrary to policy CS3 of the North Somerset Core Strategy. The increase in noise due to a 40% increase of children will further compromise the amenities of local residents. So they are my planning reasons for refusal. Michelle.
Got requests to speak, Chairman, from Councillor Petty and Councillor Cronley.
Councillor Petty.
Thank you. My daughter attended this nursery, so I spent many days going to collect my daughter from that location. She's no longer attending that nursery, so I've double checked with Nick Brain, and he's confirmed that I have no conflict of interest and I have no intention of using this business. However, given that I have visited the site and used that business, I'm very aware of the parking situation. And I have to say that the officers have reviewed the case and reviewed the situation. As Simon Exley showed us of the map, there is very good walking facilities and pathways to get access to local residents to use this facility. It is in very good proximity to an infant school, so families who drop off their children at the infant school can also use that provision. And when you have one child who is slightly older and one baby, the fact that you would be able to drop them in the same location would mean one car journey, not multiple car journeys. So I don't think that the assumption of additional children looked after on site will definitely result in additional car parking. Also, that road does have parking spaces, and although I understand the impact to the residents, I do believe that that impact is short-lived. So the officers have done their assessments and have done their reviews, and they have found that this site can handle it and it would not be overall of detriment. And I believe that the community needs an additional service in growing this childcare service. So I would like to support the officers in this and recommend for approval.
Michelle.
It's Councillor Cronley and Councillor Leigh-Morgan, Chairman.
Councillor Cronley.
Thank you. Mine's more of a question for officers. So at the moment, the top half is obviously residential. In effect, I think it said it's 3 beds, or 3 bed, whichever. Is there anything, let's for argument's sake say this is turned down, is there anything stopping this individual from, I don't know, maybe renting out those rooms? Let's say it's residential, and that could mean there are 2 extra cars that then need to be found a space somewhere. Is that possible? Because I'm just trying to weigh up, you know, if that's possible, then some of these arguments around parking are pretty much undermined by that.
Chairman, if you want me to come back, the question is that it's a residential flat with 3 bedrooms, and it could be rented out to somebody who isn't connected with the nursery use, and under permitted development, it could be occupied by up to 6 people who are living together as a family, without needing planning permission.
Councillor Leigh-Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. My concern is the fact that these are going to be very young children, some of them babies, and it's not a case of stopping outside with the engine still running, opening the door, letting the child out or children out, and driving off whilst they make their way in. These are very young children who are going to have to be taken in to the building whilst their car remains parked in the road on this hammerhead. And those cars, one at a time, are going to be there for 5 minutes, maybe longer, whilst the queue grows behind them. So it could take absolutely ages for all of the children to be dropped off outside this place as they come up to the parking slot, the drop-off point, one at a time. And at the same time, of course, creating huge inconveniences to the residents outside whose properties they're going to be parked whilst they're waiting for their turn to drop their child off. So I think that this increase of use here is going to cause all sorts of problems, and I certainly won't be approving it. Thank you.
Michelle?
Councillor Westwood and Councillor Tonkin, Chairman.
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Chairman. You were quite dismissive of the survey that was done by our officers. Could we hear from the highways officer
Well,
regarding the survey?
before I bring Simon in, I was dismissive because, as you know, the survey was carried out during the pandemic. So it bears no resemblance to what normal traffic patterns are in that locality. All I'm saying now, let's repeat the survey next year, post COVID, so we get an accurate, accurate data. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before I'll hand over to James Wigmore, who's the highway engineer, to come back on that particular question. But again, I'll just repeat what I said with the previous application, that the national advice and guidance that members need to consider is, are the parking problems severe in terms of the impact on the highway network? And that's the test. And one of the issues that members need to consider is that this is a short-term parking issue during drop-off times at the school and the nursery, and pick-up times at both. So in the overall day, it's only a very, very short period of time that there is a parking issue. And I think that Councillor Lane Morgan's actually used a very critical term. He's talked about the inconvenience that's caused. I'm afraid in planning terms, something that's inconvenient is not unacceptable. We have to demonstrate that it's harmful, and there is a very big difference between the two. James, can you explain about the survey, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Can you hear me okay? My connection is dropping in and out, so I can go onto the phone if necessary. Yes, so if we could just wind back. So for the increase in the use of this nursery, that's what we look at the parking requirement for. So it's just the increased use, the increased parking requirement from the extra places. What we do not do is retrospectively apply the parking standards policy to the existing use of the building. So for the increased places at the nursery, according to our parking standards policy, they would require 3 extra parking spaces. Now, as these can't be provided on the site, we would then look to whether they can be provided on the highway within 200 metres, which is why we required the applicant to do the survey, which we weren't satisfied was robust enough. So one of my officers went out and carried out a morning survey and an afternoon survey. So between the hours of 8 and 9 o'clock, and then in the afternoon it was school pickup time, although that doesn't particularly coincide with the nursery necessarily. So there was a 5-minute period in the morning when there weren't enough parking spaces within 200 meters of the site. That was one 5-minute period. The next thing to say is that not all of the children will be dropped off at the nursery at the same time. So what you won't necessarily get is a queue of cars all dropping off children at, say, 8:15. It will be sort of staggered. As far as highway safety, there isn't an accident record here, and whilst it may be extremely busy and well used by people dropping off for the school and then using the public footpaths to get to the school, that's not necessarily an issue we can expect the nursery to sort out. That's not their issue to sort out. As far as conditions, we have required a condition that a storage area is made available for buggies, scooters, pushchairs, so that parents who may be able to carry on their onward journey won't necessarily have to take a pushchair with them. So, given that its location is well served from quite a few directions by public footpaths and bridleways, that seems reasonable. That people would use other methods than purely the car to get there.
Two quick points, James. Firstly, outside of COVID, the pandemic, children are dropped off at the same time. They are dropped off at the same time, so it's not staggered. And the survey, as I said, it's been done during a pandemic, so any information you've provided is null and void. It's just not, it just doesn't comprehend. You cannot get correct data unless we do another survey post the pandemic. I mean, it's just irrelevant, the information in that survey. I mean, even the residents in Oaksey Grove, they will all testify that the road's been quiet. It's never been quieter. There hasn't been a single problem in the last 9 months. But before and after, there'll be horrendous problems. So the information in that survey, which is the crunch issue, is just a pure waste of time, in my view. Councillor Tonkin.
Thank you, Chairman. This is essentially a residential cul-de-sac, and to have this increase in numbers and the increased level of parking and traffic will be harmful to the adjacent residents. So I support you, Chair, in looking to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Councillor Cronley and Councillor Petty, Chairman.
Councillor Cronley.
Yeah, thanks for answering my question earlier, Simon. So it's already had 2 surveys. I don't really support a third one, but I just want to caution here that you may achieve the opposite to what you're looking for. If we've just heard under permitted development, they could have 6 people in that residential flat. That, let's for argument's sake, I know maths don't work like this, but that could be 6 cars that you permanently have to find spaces for. Or you allow this to go ahead and you condition those kind of spaces. And if that's 12 extra children, that's 12 temporary spaces at worst. I know traffic stuff doesn't work like that, but that's in effect the issue here. You have a permanent problem, or you have a problem you can condition.
Well, in regard to that point you've made, the original condition was 30 children, and that condition was put in place to protect the amenities of local residents. 30 was deemed to be a sensible number. Now the proposal going from 30 to 42 is a massive, massive increase and will create horrendous problems for the residents. Michelle, who's next?
Councillor Petty, Chairman.
Councillor Petty.
I appreciate that it can be challenging given that during COVID it's hard to know whether our data is sound. However, a lot has changed in working practice, and households and families will not revert to the same behaviours. Not every household, because now many households are working from home. So those people who are doing working hours, and Councillor Cole pointed to the same starting times. Well, some people start their working day at 8 a.m, some at 8:30 and some at 9 a.m, and therefore they drop their children prior to each of those different start times. So I'd have to argue that there are actually going to always be different start times for children to start their preschool cover. So I don't believe that there is enough evidence here in front of us to point to a fundamental problem with which to refuse this planning application. I believe that the evidence we have, despite it being COVID, points to there being sufficient parking. And although it will be disappointing to the local residents, I don't believe this has a lasting negative impact on their lives. And there is no evidence of any accidents. We could ask the applicant to put in some conditions around asking new people who use their nursery to first consider whether they can walk or cycle there, because that is the kind of thing that our climate emergency urges us to do. So we want our businesses to recognise that actually less car journeys is better, and we can help businesses in our community make decisions like that. So I will continue to say that I believe that we do not have the appropriate evidence or structures with which to refuse this planning application.
Michelle.
James Wigmore would like to speak, Chairman.
James. James, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for the delay. Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Petty has pretty much said what I was going to say about drop-off times. I'd be very surprised if everybody came for a session starting at 8 o'clock, and then because people, it depends on how far people might be travelling for an onward journey or what time they start work. And the second point about travel habits, we don't know if things will get back to normal, and I know that's a big unknown as far as making decisions. But the point is, a lot of people who can work from home do now choose to work from home. And are those people going to choose to sit in traffic jams or commute long distances in future?
Yes, but I repeat my original point to you, James. You're correct in saying we're in the unknown. That's why I say let's have another survey post-COVID next year, so we will get the true exact information. I mean, we're all second guessing. So what I'm saying, let's wait and see, and let's have a proper survey outside of COVID, outside the pandemic. Michelle, any other comments?
No more comments in chat, Chairman.
Simon, do you want? Sorry, did somebody want to speak?
Chairman, I was just going to ask Simon to, but you got there.
Simon.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I wanted to come back on two issues that you've raised. The first is this question about doing the survey during COVID. I understand we are in different circumstances, but this planning application is before you and we have to consider it now on the information that we have. And whilst I understand that, we don't know that after COVID whether things will stay the same or be different. And what we do expect to find is that far more people will be working from home than working in offices. And if that's the case, then that may substantially reduce the amount of commuting that goes on because people are using their homes more as offices. So we have to go by the survey that we did. The surveys weren't done during lockdown, where we would have expected an even greater significant decrease in traffic movements. So it's something that we're not expected as planning authorities to defer something till the pandemic is over. We have to look at it as we have done and looked at the relevant information. I want to also just make one point as well, that the Environmental Health Officer didn't object to the proposal to increase the number of children, and therefore there is no issue about noise or disturbance that you've suggested would be a reason for refusal to joining residents. And without the Environmental Health Officer saying there would be a problem on these grounds, it would be very difficult to substantiate a refusal reasons on those grounds. And finally, what I would say, the other reason you suggested is about the size of the building. The building is existing, and the proposal is just to extend the nursery building in it, the nursery use in part of the existing building. So therefore, it's not changing and providing more physical development in terms of the building. What you're objecting to is the increase in use, and it seems to me that the main reason for refusal that you're proposing would only be on increased activity and lack of parking. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, but on that premise, the original officer put a limit of 30 children on. Yes, Chairman, I don't know the reason why that was put on. I understand, having worked for many years for the council, that an environmental health officer did used to restrict the number of children at children's nurseries because of noise and disturbance for children playing outdoors. But in this particular case, the proposal is to use babies, and the noise levels won't be the same as other children who would play outdoors in an outdoor play area. So all I can say to you is that that the reasons for potential for noise would not apply to this proposal now.
and the environmental health officer isn't objecting to it on noise grounds, it is a different issue if you're just objecting to it on the grounds of insufficient car parking. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so I'm going to sum up.
Chairman, Richard Kent has asked to speak.
Okay, Richard.
Chairman, yes, sorry, it's just to follow on, just to be really clear what the reasons for refusal are. So I think what I've got is that the increased intensity and scale of the proposal is inappropriate to location and will prejudice the living conditions of adjoining residents by reason of...
Shall I just read them through again?
Yeah, I just wondered if you wanted to amend them according to what Simon had said, but yeah, please do.
The character and increased scale of the proposal from a dual use to purely a larger, much commercial use is not appropriate in this location, and the proposal will prejudice the living conditions and amenities of local residents. This is contrary to policies DM69, DM32, and also CS3. The proposal is contrary to policy CS11 and DM24 and DM28 in that it compromises highway safety and it has not demonstrated the additional parking on site or additional parking on the highway. The proposal does not meet the council standards for parking. Parking problems will intensify in the surrounding area, contrary to policy DM28. The proposal is contrary to policy DM38 in that the proposal should respect the massing, scale and proportions of the street scene. And also I believe the proposal is contrary to CS3 of the core strategy, that the increase is in noise due to a 40% increase of children will further compromise the residents' amenities. So to sum up, I think one of the key issues, if not the key issue, regards is the issue relating to highways and the credence we give to the transport survey conducted during COVID. I believe the integrity of that survey is severely compromised and flawed, and we should repeat it in 2021 so we get a true picture. Otherwise, we're all second guessing. And regards to Councillor Petty's comments, they are not relevant to the here and now. Parents who drive to the nursery have employment miles away from Nailsea and cars that are essential to their current employment. I have already outlined the planned reasons for refusal. So the proposal is for refusal. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. I will now take the votes from each councillor in alphabetical order, and for each vote taken, the councillor will be confirming that they have heard the whole of the debate unless they state otherwise. The proposal is for refusal. When the councillor says for, it will be for refusal. When the councillor says against, it will be against refusal. Councillor Peter Bryant.
For.
Councillor Cole.
For.
Councillor Crewe.
For.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Against.
Councillor Cronolly.
Against.
Councillor Griggs, I think, has left the meeting. Councillor Harley is absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
John.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Petty.
Against.
Councillor Solomon.
Against.
Councillor Tonkin.
For.
Councillor Westwood.
Against.
Six, five.
Chairman, that proposal was lost. There were 6 against refusal.
Okay.
And 5 for.
So we need another proposal from the committee.
Councillor Petty is asked to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Petty.
I propose that we approve this.
Do you have a seconder?
Councillor Conley, Chairman.
Any more debate? Michelle?
Simon would like to speak, Chairman.
Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to pick up something that Councillor Petty said in her speech about encouraging a former travel plan. And I think that obviously hearing the debate and the concern of members about the car parking situation, if you're happy, Councillor Petty, to take that on board, we can add a condition about requesting a travel plan or arrangement, and so that's, we could agree that with the chairman, if you're happy to take that on board as an additional condition.
I would strongly support that. I would like it to consider both the staff's travel as well as the customers, clients, with, you know, the parents of children. So I'd like it to consider both of those sets of people and how the applicant might support them to reduce their car journeys.
Okay.
Michelle.
No further comments in chat, Chairman.
So we have a proposal to approve the application. Sue, please conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman. The motion is for approval as the officer's report with the additional condition as just described. When I ask the councillor to vote, when they are saying for, they will be for approval. When the councillor says against, it will be against approval. Councillor Bryant.
For.
Councillor Cole.
Against.
Councillor Crew.
Against.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
For.
Councillor Cronolly.
For.
Councillor Griggs has left. Councillor Harley's absent. Councillor Lane-Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Petty.
For.
Councillor Solomon.
For.
Councillor Tonkin.
Against.
Councillor Westwood.
For.
Chairman, that's been carried approval. That's 4 for approval and 4 against.
Thank you. Item 8, planning appeals. Richard.
Sorry, can you repeat those figures? Did you say 4 for and 4 against? Those were incorrect, surely.
Sue?
So yes, there was 7 for and 4 against. Yes.
Oh, that's all right then. Good.
Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, you've got a good list of the appeal decisions. We've had a number of successes, which has been excellent. We've got appeals coming in thick and fast. As you'll also see, the enforcement team in particular is got a number of key deadlines over the Christmas period. What's not shown on this list, but will be on your list for the next meeting, is the Cinderford Cottage site at Rington, where that appeal was dismissed. So the committee's decision was upheld, which is good news for the committee, and it also shows how the officers do a very professional job in defending your position for you. So obviously, Councillor Hogg, as ward member, was very pleased about that. As you may have picked up through members only, the Bristol Airport appeal is progressing in the sense that a good deal of more information, amended information, was submitted by the airport on the 30th of November, and that was following agreement by the planning inspectorate. So hopefully you will have seen that. But it encompasses a number of things, including updated aviation forecasts and updated economic impact assessments to reflect the impacts of COVID, an amended or addendums to the environmental statement covering things like noise, air quality, carbon impact, and an updated transport and parking study. So that is now with us. It's on the council website for anybody who wants to see it. And there's a period for public comment until the 6th of January, following which on the 11th of January, we expect the inspectorate to formally start the appeal process. And from there, all the key deadlines will flow. But the public inquiry is programmed for the 20th of July next year for approximately 4 weeks. And there will be a compulsory purchase order inquiry if required that follows straight on from that. So it's going to be a busy summer dealing with a particular appeal. Some of you may have seen on the news today that the Supreme Court has quashed the Court of Appeal decision on, or overturned the Court of Appeal decision on London Heathrow. So that's obviously something that will play into the case, as has some updated climate change positions that have been published during the last week or so. So it's a rapidly evolving scenario, but we'll keep members in touch through this means and through members only as we move forward.
Thank you, Richard. I believe you want to say a few words about the peer advisory service.
Yes, if there's no questions on the appeals, I'd just like to briefly mention a peer review that we're having at the planning service in January. So a peer review is where external people come in and look at our service, what we do, look at what we're doing well, look at what we could do better, and give us advice on things we should be thinking about. So it's a mix of planners from other authorities and councillors from other authorities. A small team of 4 or 5 will spend a few days with us virtually, talking to various people about what we do, and that will include both officers, councillors and stakeholders. So we're just in the process of putting arrangements in place, but they will want to talk to planning committee members. So you'll get an invite shortly for an hour slot in the week of the 25th of January to spend some time with the reviewers. It may not be convenient for all, but you will probably appreciate that we are quite limited in diary slots. So we will send the diary invite out. If you can make it, that's excellent. If you can't, don't worry about it, because I'm sure a number of you will be able to express the views of the many. They'll also be talking to separately the chairman and vice chairman and the party group leaders and the like. So they'll get a good rounded view of what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, there is no urgent business. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you all very much.